I truly believe in my philosophy of education, which is there's no such thing as a bad kid, just a bored kid. So it's our responsibility to try to vary instruction and keep them engaged in meaningful learning. Most of your discipline problems come when students are bored. And the more we vary activities and hit different learning styles, the more success we're going to have reaching those kids and keeping them engaged. Think about it from a student's perspective. You and I, when we're stuck in an in-service for 2 or 3 hours, if they don't vary the activities, we get bored and we just want out of there. Imagine doing that 5 days a week for 6 hours a day. That's what these students are having to endure, going desk to desk. So keep that in mind, is that students spend the majority of their day in a desk and they get a lot of lecture, a lot of notes, and it's up to us to vary those activities. Focus on all the different learning styles. Typically, if you're going to lecture, try to break it up into 15-minute segments, giving them a break in between or varying your activities. So if you lecture for 15 minutes, stop, maybe do some drawings for 15 minutes, and then maybe go back to your lecture. Just a thought on that. So put your standards on the board where they're supposed to be, and then make sure that you address them in all the different learning styles. Make sure you have a strategy for your visual learners. That's relatively easy. The school system is really built around them. Your auditory learners and your kinesthetic learners. So try to vary your activities and incorporate all learning styles. The school system is built around visual learners. Obviously, books and reading are a fundamental way we convey knowledge. So with visual learners, we almost always hit our visual learners, but if you do have a visual learner, here are some things to think about. Incorporate reading, incorporate pictures, graphs, charts, and note into your notes when projecting them onto the board. Incorporate videos where you can, and potentially suggest flashcards as a means for them to learn. So a lot of times what I do is I take my vocabulary words and I have the students make flashcards with those words, and they have a right pile and a wrong pile, and they keep going through them until they can get them all in the correct pile. So that's one way you can instruct your visual learners to learn if they identify themselves as a visual learner. Keep that in mind. If you just got done covering a bunch of notes, you've covered your visual learners for the day. Now it's time to focus on your auditory learners. The best thing you can do now is hold a question and answer session and engage your auditory learners in discussion. That will help them out. So you're varying your activities and you're now hitting two groups of students. One of the things that auditory learners can also do to help themselves is record your lectures. They like to participate in discussions, as we mentioned. Another thing I've had success with is having them create poems or songs, and I'll have them do an environmental concept because I teach environmental science. They'll write a poem or a song about it, and if they come in and perform it in front of the class, I'll give them extra credit because now not only are they listening to themselves, but my other auditory learners are learning from them as well. Another thing that will help them is reading out loud. So if you identify someone as an auditory learner, these are some strategies you can give them to help themselves. As teachers, we usually do a great job with our visual learners and our auditory learners. Sometimes we're not as strong with our kinesthetic learners from an instructional standpoint. So here's a few things you can do to make sure your kinesthetic learners are benefiting. One of the things I've had fantastic results with are vocabulary drawings. Rather than have students write out a word in a definition, I have them draw the concept. So I'm forcing them to think at a higher level to represent that concept, especially if it's something abstract like nuclear fission. So I'll list 16 of the most important words for each chapter, and then they have to draw them. They have to represent it in some fashion, whether it's a predator-prey relationship, a food web, a trophic pyramid. They have to draw it and come up with a concept. Kinesthetic learners like to manipulate things. They like to move around. So a lot of times with my kinesthetic learners, I will let them move around the classroom. I'll tell them if you need to get up and move around, have at it. We have a world-class dance team at our school. They're perennial national champions. And sometimes they'll ask me if they can, rather than do their drawings, represent something through a dance. And I'll say, okay, in 1 year they did a water cycle dance where they actually got up and represented each of the stages in the water cycle through a dance. And it was so popular, it caught on throughout the school, and I had all sorts of kinesthetic learners getting involved. So you can be creative with these things. Experiments. Kinesthetic learners benefit from experiments and hands-on activities. They like to build things. Keep those things in mind. But if you have a kinesthetic learner, one of the things you can tell them is to really focus on those drawings. Pick keywords they need to know and have them write out the definition and the word, but also have them draw the concept. So those are some strategies for kinesthetic learners. So in summary, try to vary your activities. Try not to go more than 15 minutes of lecture or projecting notes on a screen before you vary the activities or give them a break of some sort, and then you can get back to that activity. When you are varying activities, try to hit the different learning styles. The list I've shared with you is not extensive. I've just touched on the 3 major learning styles. I will do a video on each of them separately and discuss strategies that works for each of those learning styles as far as helping the kids out. And one of the things you can do to get a hint of what their learning style might be is read through their written statements if they write something and look for terms like hear, see, or feel, or listen to a student when you're talking to them. If they say something like, I hear what you're saying, that's a cue and a hint that this person may be an auditory learner. Or, I see what you mean. The moment you hear the word see, that means that person may be a visual learner. And I feel confused when you hear the word feel or see the word feel a lot in a particular essay of some sort. That's a hint that that person may be a kinesthetic learner. So again, it's not a diagnosis, but a hint that we might be moving in the right direction to identifying how the student learns. If you've learned anything from this video, please click the like button. Please consider subscribing. Thank you for your time. Colster out.